When I was in seminary, I was invited to serve on the school's admissions committee. I read applications and with a team of people decided whether to recommend prospective seminary students for admission to the seminary. And while I don't remember a single one of any of those applications that I read, I'm very confident that none were quite as funny as this essay submitted to NYU by Hugh Gallagher. Of course, I don't actually know what I would have done with an essay like the one Hugh Gallagher submitted. It might make me wonder whether he was serious enough for the kind of academic rigor that he would face in graduate school. I've researched it a bit, and I know that Gallagher did indeed submit the essay for college application. What I don't know is whether he actually got into the school for which he was applying. In fact, I kind of don't want to know, because I love that Gallagher had somehow found a way to be liberated from the fear that probably gets in the way of many a college application essay. Perhaps it's a little like dangling off a cliff, clinging on to a vine while a tiger paws at you from above, and another tiger licks his chops, eagerly waiting for you to fall. And two mice come along and start chewing at that vine. You are about to face certain death, and in the midst of all that fear, you notice a ripe strawberry hanging within reach, and so you grab it and pop it in your mouth for a luscious taste. There are two interpretations of this Buddhist tale. One is the wisdom of living in heightened stress and uncertainty, dangling from that vine, but still able to enjoy life and live in the moment, noticing that strawberry. The other interpretation is the attachments of the physical senses, that tasty strawberry, that lure our attention away from what really matters, staying focused so we can save our life. Is the person who stops for a strawberry while dangling from a vine wise or foolish? The story is like a Zen koan, a riddle meant to be pondered more than answered, and a story that likely means different things to different people depending on where you are in your life. Siddhartha Gautama was born around 566 years before the Common Era. That is, around 566 years before the birth of Jesus. He was born into a royal family in Nepal, and for many years his family tried to keep him isolated from the outside world, keeping him isolated from any suffering that he might be exposed to by leaving the palace. They kept him inside those palace walls for many years, not letting him outside. Perhaps you can imagine being stuck at home day after day with minimal contact with the outside world. Eventually, he made his way out, and he saw people who were suffering from the impact of poverty and hunger, illness, dying, and grief, the stuff of being human. Siddhartha wondered, why? Why do people have to experience sadness? Why do we have to grow older? Why do things have to change? He was asking big questions like the questions that our second and third grade Age of Reasoners are asking right now as they continue to meet in their class online with Catherine. These big questions. What is the meaning of life? Why do bad things happen? Siddhartha decided that he wanted to live not in the protection of a wealthy royal life, but he wanted to live out in the world with limited resources, with ordinary people. And one day, while he was living this simple life, he was meditating under a Bodhi tree, and Siddhartha clearly saw not simply the cause of suffering, but he saw the way out, the way to overcome suffering. And that was the day that he became enlightened, the day he became the Buddha, which translates from the Sanskrit to mean one who is awakened or one who understands the truth. Siddhartha decided to live his life committed to helping other people find that kind of truth and that kind of wisdom so that they too could overcome their suffering. Legend has it that Buddha's enlightenment under the Bodhi tree happened on his birthday, and that many years later, when he was about 80 years old, he died on that very same day. People place his birthday around April 8th. Some place it later in April or early in May. But the idea that his birth and his enlightenment and his death are all on the same day is itself very Buddhist, in that we don't get to decide which occasion is good or bad. It just is. On any particular day, a person comes into the world and we can decide that that is a good day. But on that same day, another person died and has gone from the world. And we could decide that that is a bad day. But enlightenment involves accepting the day in all its complexity without an attachment to whether it is good or whether it is bad. Just accepting the circumstances without judgment, without fear. And so we imagine holding onto a vine for dear life, this man, and maybe this man is you. There's danger in either direction. The vine itself is starting to disappear. Right now, we have a world of people who are facing a shared anxiety about that vine disappearing. Whether the vine is life itself, whether the vine is one's income or job threatening to disappear. The vine might be a loved one whose health is threatened. Maybe the vine is emotional stability, which is threatened in the face of isolation or unknowing. The vine could be a relationship. Whatever it is, there is a collective fear moving through our world as we all cling to our vines. Last week, Eric and I went to the grocery store to get some things. We weren't there 10 minutes when I started to feel afraid. People were wearing masks, and I wasn't wearing a mask. The CDC and the national government had not, as of yet, suggested that I should wear a mask, but here were all these other people in masks. I'd also just watched a video of a guy teaching us how germs are everywhere in grocery products. He taught us how to bring them home safely and sanitize them, and that was all really helpful and empowering, but here I was still in the grocery store where all the germs were hiding out on cans and bottles, the grocery cart, the credit card touchpad, in the air. As far as I could tell, the virus was everywhere in that store. It was on my cart. It was in everyone I saw. Everyone I saw was somebody who was probably just about to sneeze on me. My fear started to manifest in my body. I could feel my heart rate increasing. I couldn't even remember why we came to the grocery store in the first place. We grabbed a couple more items, did the self-checkout line, beeline for the car where we loaded up on hand sanitizer. This fear is not a fear I am used to. And it takes a lot of energy for me, as healthy as I am, as low risk as I am, for me to hold an awareness that a virus we cannot see and cannot control, that is highly contagious, that can be deadly for some people, is out and about in our world. And the good news is that this fear response keeps me from being careless or unnecessarily increasing my odds of getting COVID-19. But that's the easy part of this work. The harder work is how to be careful and cautious, but also at the same time find my way back to life. Because sometimes our fear impulses are exaggerated. Sometimes our fear impulses are misplaced or unnecessary or holding us back from living a life of fullness because we can only see that clinging to the vine. That's all we can see sometimes. And what Buddha came to understand all those years ago is that we ought to befriend our fear, befriend our judgments, our anger, our sadness, whatever suffering it is that we are battling. We make friends with it. We listen to what it has to teach us in this moment. What this fear teaches me when I'm listening to it, instead of just being captive to it, is how much I like to know what is going on and how much I like to be able to predict what will happen to me and to my loved ones and to the world. What my fear reminds me is that I like to hold on to a sense that I can control the people and circumstances and events in my life. At very least, I feel like I should be able to know when I can finally schedule a face-to-face meeting again, or be able to go to the grocery store and buy the 24-pack of toilet paper when I'm running low. I ought to be able to know when I can do these things. Truth is, I start to depend on things sort of staying the same, staying predictable. I even rest my happiness on whether I feel like I can control people and circumstances and events around me. And I get really unsettled in the midst of change, in the midst of uncertainty and chaos. Not just fear, but sadness too, and self-doubt and anger. And what Buddha discovered sitting under that Bodhi tree centuries ago is that no matter our suffering, we all have the capacity as human beings to release our attachments to that which makes us suffer simply by being mindful about what those attachments are. The beauty of this story of the man gripping the vine is that he was not clinging so tightly that he couldn't take in the fuller picture. He did not let fear be his only response. In the midst of fear, he was able to stay open to the possibility that joy might still be out there in the world and within reach. Now, this story doesn't work if you're tempted to pass judgment on the man or his situation. And Buddhism itself says that a fullness of living also does not work if you're focused on judging yourself or judging other people or judging your circumstances. If you are presently judging yourself, judging others, judging your circumstances, you are not living fully. That judgment gets in your way. We can be so quick to try to discern what is good and what is bad, what is right, what's wrong. We cling to what we think is good and right, and we think that will give us permanent happiness. But sooner or later, that clinging leads to suffering because nothing is permanent. There is an inevitable force in the universe that means that everything is changing all of the time. And when the time comes for the thing you are clinging to disappear, you want to be sure that you are not still clinging to it. Where is your suffering right now? Can you befriend it? Can you listen to it? Let it teach you, let it show you what it is you are clinging to. Last month, I was talking to someone who just came out of their first experience of a 10-day silent meditation. No talking, no internet, rigid schedules, getting up early, full days of sitting meditation. And I asked how it was, and they said it was excruciating. And when asked whether they'd do it again, they said, in a heartbeat. Now, I didn't ask, but I imagined that the fruit of that practice was worth the suffering. And although none of us choose social distancing or the circumstances we presently are in, which for some of us is excruciating, I invite you to notice where and how this practice of social distancing, of clearing your calendar, of not shopping, of doing whatever it was, of not doing whatever it was you used to do when you were out in the world, how this practice is speaking to you about what it is you cling to. Just like in silent retreat, which, by the way, people pay money to attend, many of you have this opportunity right now to notice what your life is like when stripped of some of the defenses that you normally rely on to feel good, to be distracted, to feel purposeful. How do you manage chaos and uncertainty without masking with all that busyness, without masking with constantly doing for others, or whatever it is that fills your life with meaning and purpose? How do you come back to who you are and what you are? Can you handle the silence? Can you handle the stillness, the slowness? And for those of you who are busier than ever, can you adjust to this pace without clinging, without losing your sense of joy and wonder and peace? This period of time, this pandemic, or whatever it is you're going through, is not a pause in your life. This is your life. This moment, which might include suffering, also has so much glorious potential and possibility as any other moment in your life. Whatever you have decided were your peak moments in life, or whatever you think your peak moments in life are going to be, let go of that notion, let go of that judgment, and decide that right now, right here, is your time. Even if you are stuck at home, how will you embrace your circumstances and come back to life? The world needs you to come back to life. I heard a doctor recently urge people to be alert, not anxious, so that we can keep our vibrant and creative energies alive. Alert, not anxious. Thich Nhat Hanh says, we don't need everyone in the world to be not anxious. We just need one person to be not anxious, and it will spread out among the group. There is a joy in just being alive. An African American spiritual, a song that emerged in the terror of enslavement, says, "This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me, and the world can't take it away." That is to say that joy and peace and love are not only found things in the world. They are not only found in the expectations we have of where we think joy and peace and love must be. You know, we think that Easter joy is only found in gathering together and hiding and finding plastic eggs, but where else might we cultivate Easter joy this year? Or we think that Passover must be experienced in a large community in presence together with friends and family, but how else can we cultivate that community? What expectations are getting in your way of living fully right now? And how might you come back to life in new ways?